He tore our life apart and ran to her without looking back. Years later, at his birthday party packed with friends and family, I walked in, handed him a small envelope, and watched his face drain of all color as he read it. Gasps filled the room as his perfect world crumbled. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. When I first met Ryan, it felt like the universe had finally thrown me a lifeline. After years of drifting through half-hearted relationships and guarded conversations, here was a man who looked me in the eye and made me believe I was the only person in the world worth seeing. He carried himself with effortless confidence, the kind that whispered promises of stability, of a future I had almost stopped hoping for. We fell hard and fast. Looking back, it was almost reckless. How quickly we merged our lives. How easily I handed over pieces of myself I had once protected so fiercely. But love has a way of softening judgment, turning bright red flags into pale, ignorable pinks. Our life together unfolded like a glossy magazine spread. A sunlit house with a porch swing, whispered dreams about children with Ryan's laugh and my stubbornness, lazy weekends spent planning vacations we hadn't yet earned. He brought flowers for no reason. He kissed my forehead like I was something precious. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and I clung to it with a grateful desperation I didn't recognize as fear. Then the seams began to fray. It was subtle at first. Late nights at the office, half-hearted excuses, glances at his phone when he thought I wasn't looking. I told myself every couple goes through rough patches. I told myself he loved me, and love would explain away the unease coiling in my gut. I twisted myself into knots trying to be more understanding, more patient, more everything. But reality has a cruel way of ripping through denial. It happened on a night I still can't forget. Our wedding anniversary. I had planned a quiet evening, candles, his favorite dinner, a card I had spent days writing. He walked through the door, distracted, muttering something about work. When he turned his back, I saw the slip of paper sticking out of his jacket pocket. A hotel receipt, dated that afternoon. I stood there, frozen, the paper trembling in my hands like a living thing. My heart was pounding so loudly I barely heard myself when I asked him what it was. Ryan didn't even flinch. "I'm sorry, Emma," he said, his voice mechanical, as if he were reciting lines from a script he had rehearsed. "I can't fight it anymore. I'm in love with someone else. Her name's Amber. We've been seeing each other for a while now." No anger, no guilt, just tired detachment. Before I could even process the words, he was upstairs, packing a suitcase with methodical efficiency. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just stood there, watching the life we built collapse in real time, reduced to clothes shoved into a duffel bag and the hollow echo of a door slamming shut. In one night, I became a ghost in my own home. But some small, flickering part of me, buried deep beneath the shock and humiliation, refused to be extinguished. I wasn't broken. Not yet. The silence that followed Ryan's departure was suffocating. It settled over the house like a heavy, invisible weight, pressing into every corner, filling every breath. I learned to live with it. I learned to move through the empty spaces he left behind, patching over the cracks with routines and meaningless tasks. But nothing could mask the moment my world shifted again, when a faint, almost imperceptible nausea sent me stumbling to the bathroom one morning, and 2 pink lines on a stick shattered the fragile numbness I had built around myself. Pregnant, carrying the child of a man who had already chosen another life. For a long time, I sat on the cold bathroom floor, clutching the test with trembling hands, staring at the future, folding itself in ways I hadn't planned. There were 1,000 voices inside me, each one screaming a different question. Would he come back if he knew? Would he even care? But louder than all of them was the single, brutal truth. Ryan had made his decision. He had walked away without hesitation, without a backward glance. My child would not be a bargaining chip. I would raise him alone, on my terms, with no strings attached to a man who had proven how easily he could discard those who loved him. Still, some wounds fester, refusing to heal with dignity. It wasn't just the betrayal that gnawed at me. It was the erasure. The casual way Ryan and Amber paraded their happiness, as if I had never existed. Amber's carefully curated posts flooded social media. Smiling brunches, cozy holidays, captions dripping with a smug, curated intimacy. A performance for the world, each photo a deliberate rewriting of the past, airbrushing me out of the narrative like a stain they were eager to forget. The divorce papers arrived without a word. No meeting, no apology. Just a sterile packet of documents slipped through my mail slot, asking for my signature like it was the final step in a transaction already completed. It wasn't grief I felt anymore. It was something sharper, something more corrosive. Then came the final blow. A text from a mutual friend, casual, almost flippant. "Did you hear? Amber's pregnant too. Looks like they're really building a life together." For a moment, the world tilted. Rage and humiliation collided inside me, and for the first time, I stopped feeling powerless. No more mourning, no more questioning. Something cold and precise hardened inside my chest. I wouldn't chase them. I wouldn't beg for acknowledgement. I would wait. And when the time came, I would tear down the paper-thin facade of their perfect little life, piece by piece, smile by manufactured smile, until they were left with nothing but the ruins they deserved. The years didn't erase the betrayal. They sharpened it. I built my life around Noah, pouring into him every ounce of love that had once been wasted on Ryan. Every scraped knee I bandaged, every bedtime story I read, every school project we finished together became a small, private rebellion. I didn't speak Ryan's name. I didn't explain the empty seat at school performances, the birthdays celebrated without calls or gifts. I refused to poison Noah with bitterness, but I made damn sure he never grew up waiting for a man who had never once looked back. Ryan stayed gone. Not a letter, not a visit. Amber, meanwhile, continued her pageant of perfection, a tireless campaign to portray the life she had stolen as something sacred and untouchable. Photos of family trips, syrupy captions about motherhood, posts dripping with performative gratitude to the man who had once promised me the same future. Their lies stacked higher and higher, delicate as glass. And I waited. Not with desperation, not anymore. I waited with the cold patience of someone who knows that truth, real truth, needs no audience. It needs no struggle. It only needs time. It was an ordinary doctor's visit that finally cracked the foundation beneath them. Noah needed a minor procedure, nothing serious. But the blood tests raised questions. Questions the doctors couldn't answer. Questions that led to more tests, more consultations, until finally, quietly, the answers were laid bare. Ryan couldn't possibly be Noah's biological father. I sat there, staring at the results, feeling the world shift under my feet again. But this time, there was no fear. Only a grim, heavy clarity. Somewhere in the tangled wreckage of betrayal, Amber's betrayal of Ryan had been buried too. She hadn't just stolen my husband. She had lied to him every single day since. And I held the proof. The knowledge settled over me like armor. No confrontation yet. No angry text or tearful call. I tucked the DNA results away, letting them burn a slow, steady fire inside me. I chose my moment carefully. Ryan's birthday was coming up. A celebration surrounded by family and friends. an audience that had always clapped along to the fairy tale Ryan and Amber so desperately curated. The perfect stage for the truth. There would be no screaming, no dramatic accusations, only a quiet unveiling, simple, devastating, undeniable. Their perfect life wasn't just built on betrayal. It was built on a lie so deep that no amount of spin could save them once it came to light, and I would be the one to strike the match. The night of Ryan's birthday arrived, heavy with the illusion of celebration. The rented hall gleamed under soft lights, decorated in gold and navy. Laughter floated through the air, polished and hollow. Amber moved among the guests like a queen, her hand resting possessively on Ryan's arm, her smile sharpened into something just a little too wide. They were playing their parts flawlessly, basking in the admiration of people who had long ago chosen not to see the cracks. I walked in alone, wearing black, a deliberate contrast to their carefully curated brightness. Heads turned. A ripple moved through the room. Ryan stiffened the moment he saw me, his expression flickering from surprise to something colder, contempt, or maybe fear. I moved through the crowd with calm precision, ignoring the whispered questions, the brittle smiles. In my hand, I carried a single envelope, thin but heavy enough to crush everything they had built. I stopped a few feet from Ryan, giving him no warning, no chance to retreat behind polite pretense. "Happy birthday," I said softly, almost kindly. He stared at me, guarded, suspicious. I held out the envelope. He hesitated for a fraction of a second too long before taking it. "You might want to open that now," I added, my voice still even, almost gentle. "It's personal." Around us, the room tightened. Conversations faltered. Glasses paused mid-air. Ryan opened the envelope with stiff fingers. I watched his eyes move across the document, watched the blood drain from his face in real time. His hands began to tremble, the paper fluttering like a trapped bird. "What is this?" His voice cracked, loud enough that the nearest guests could hear. Amber hurried over, her heels clicking frantically against the polished floor. "Ryan?" she whispered, peering over his shoulder. I saw the moment her face collapsed, the moment pretense shattered. It was all there, printed in cold black and white. Noah, 0% biological relation to Ryan. The biological father listed under a cross-reference match. David Evans. My half-brother. Gasps broke out around the room. Someone dropped a glass. It shattered against the floor with a sharp, accusatory sound. "You should probably ask your son who I am," I said, meeting Ryan's eyes without flinching. And then I turned and walked away, leaving them to drown in the wreckage. There was no need to stay and watch the unraveling. It had already begun. The whispers that once erased me now consumed them. Friends who had once praised their perfect love story recoiled, expressions twisted with disgust and pity. Family members exchanged furious, horrified glances. Ryan's empire of lies had collapsed in a single heartbeat, and I hadn't even raised my voice. That night, I didn't celebrate with champagne or triumphant speeches. I tucked Noah into bed, kissed his forehead, and sat by the window in the quiet of my own home, feeling something better than victory. Peace. Total, absolute peace. For the first time in years, the past was exactly where it belonged, behind me, and I had never felt stronger.